as Keith advised me to do, we're going to take Nicholas Earpy's situation and take a little variation on that, and then run with it and see what kind of advice the distinguished gentleman has for me. I gotta have a word with Jerry about that. That's something I have to live up to now. I actually have to be a distinguished gentleman. Well, I think you got the moniker because you already are a distinguished gentleman.
I tell people all the time, being a Marine is 99% perception, 1% reality.
Right.
So,
wow.
But thank you for saying that I'm a distinguished gentleman.
I was going to say, we know you on the backside too when the cameras are off. And I can 100% vouch for that. You know. Well, which is why you're here.
Is that another way of saying you're old, Smith, distinguished gentleman? Is that what that means, Judah?
No, I don't think so. I think Judah.
All right, I'll shut up now.
Is not. I would say Judah is not a distinguished gentleman. I mean, he's just more an invisible one because he's not in front of the cameras all the time.
Well, I'm going to shut up now because I'm the guest here, so I'm going to be quiet.
No. You're not the guest. You're my friend.
There you go.
Good buddy. You're more like family. Yeah. But I didn't want to say I was like, how about like a cousin this way? You don't feel super old.
That's still family though.
That's still family. I was going to be like an uncle, but I was like, I don't want you to feel old.
So we come from both big families,
right?
And you want to start? We.
I think we're rolling. Yeah. Oh, I guess we'll open up with what Keith had to say about big families, but until then, Judah, when you're ready.
Otherwise, I'll just keep on talking.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Today y Mañana. I'm Nicholas Earpy. I'm with the distinguished gentleman Keith Smith. I also want to do a quick shout out to our partners, Emergent Financial Services, GBS Financial Services, our good friend Johan Torres, Miguel Corradine from Craddock Serious Insurance, Kessel Cider, Aqua Seville Hand Car Wash, The Gym Seville, and, as Alex likes to say, the premier Latino networking group in Virginia, Ford Adelante Business Alliance. So thank you, Keith, for joining me today. We were talking about families just a moment ago.
Well, it's first and foremost, this is an absolute pleasure. It's actually fun to be here as a guest. So this is fun. I'm gonna have a lot of fun. I may not be back again after today, but this is going to be a lot of fun.
You said that last time, and you're still here.
Oh, did you really?
Right?
Yeah. So you think I actually remember what we did last time?
The last time you said the same thing. You're like,
I
don't know if I'm going to get, but that's why you get invited back, because you get in trouble here.
Maybe you're just that desperate. Is that what that is to have?
No. It's always a pleasure. You know.
But I'm excited. We were starting off air before we got started. We're like almost family, right? We come from these big, families, and I was about ready to tell a joke. Not a joke, I actually do it. When we all get together and we're 20, 30 people for a Sunday meal, we all grab hands, we all pray or do whatever you prefer to do. And then I usually lead it, and then I look up and I see, dear Lord, please tell me I'm adopted. And I'm not adopted. My parents go, no, you're not adopted. So
yeah, I've heard that joke before. My mom says that too. Everyone in the family thinks that they're the adopted one.
Well, I'm praying. I want to be adopted. So I'm here to help. So what can I do? How can we kick off? And what would you like to start the show with?
Well, I was going to start the show with a situation. So we've had a lot of young couples coming to Emergent Financial Services recently with financial planning needs. And one of the things we noticed is that they're also in that that piece of real estate where they're either looking to buy a new home and trying to upgrade because they have growing families, or they're about to start a family, or they are in a home that they're probably looking at being for the next maybe 2 to 3 years, kind of short term, and then upgrading their home. So like you've got this, and it's interestingly enough, my wife and I are in a very similar situation. So one thing we've been doing is having like a lot of discussions about, what to do with the home, what should we look for. But I want to start with sort of what to do with the home. And we were talking stats beforehand. So when we're looking at, you take a look at your home, what should be the first thing that you look at? Like what is worth taking the effort to renovate?
Got it. So, so to paint the picture a little bit differently, so I understand it. I'm in a home.
Right.
Right. I'm not quite ready to sell yet, but I want to start working on a few things on the house, and or townhome or condo, whatever you own.
Right.
And what are the best return on investments? So what are the best items we can do that? And one of the great things about being part of the National Association of Realtors is that they're like stat gurus.
Right.
So I'm actually looking at a report that comes. They do this every year. And this is the 2022 version of it. It's a combination between the National Association of Realtors and the National Association of Remodelers. So it talks about what's the best ROI. So, and it breaks it down into two parts. One is the interior,
Right.
and exterior. So believe it or not, the number one return investment on your home, if you're going to fix up your condo or your townhome to put it on the market, is actually refinishing hardwoods. You get about 147%
Wow, yeah.
return on your money on that end of it. So that, that's the top of the thing. Believe it or not, last year was your garage doors.
Wow. Oh, so it was totally different.
It changes from year to year. They poll several thousand people to go ahead and do this. Some of them are consistent. Some of them are a little bit different on the end of it. But, the standard ones are like kitchen upgrades and so forth and so on in that end of it. But that hardwood refinish was not top one last year. I believe it or not, was the garage doors. You had some, like almost a 200% return, which was odd.
Right.
You would not think that that's it. But
No, was it operating garage door? Was it so that it works? Because I can see that being a big deal, but like the way the garage door looks, I can't imagine being.
Nick, they're all supposed to work. Just want to let you know.
Well, no,
You know,
I
you're talking about an
understand,
automatic
but I mean, like,
operator.
well, in the sense of like if you're pressing the button and it's not opening, that's something that needs to get fixed. But I guess.
But you asked me a great question in our pre-production conversation. So if I refinish my floor, right, and I'm going to sell it right away, you're going to capture that kind of percentage return. But if you're going to stay in the home for a couple of years, the floor gets worn out. There's a reason it got refinished, right?
Yeah.
On that end of it, just so that you know, a complete kitchen renovation. So that's like gutting it and redoing it. You've got about a 75%. So you get about 75% of what you put into it.
Wow.
So if you put 10,000. You're smart. I can't figure out what 75% of 10,000 is.
It's 7,500.
7,500.
So
there you go. I figured that out.
Well, you gave me an easy number to start with. If you said 7,000, it would have been a lot tougher.
But the upgrade, which is in the total, and this is an important thing to talk about, which isn't a total renovation. So a total renovation, generally you're ripping cabinets out.
Yeah.
You're doing all that stuff. An upgrade can be painting the cabinets, putting a new countertop on. Let's say you had an old Formica countertop and you wanted to do granite. On that end of it, you get a 67% return on that.
Right.
So the delta between the two is pretty close.
Yeah.
But the cost, right? The cost to do a kitchen renovation is much greater than a upgrade. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it makes total sense. The only thing I was going to say is, so when we're talking about upgrades and you mentioned something like repainting or refinishing, are there sort of like no-nos or, because one of the things that you know, especially my wife is worried about is that if you go with something that's in trendy now, 2 or 3 years from now, is it still going to be trendy? Like if you color, like if we paint the cabinets aubergine purple, and all of a sudden 2 to 3 years from now somebody comes in and they're like, oh, those are ugly, even though it's completely like been newly painted, is that going to have a negative effect?
Maybe yes, maybe no yes, right? Those of us who have been around for a while remember seafoam green toilets and shag carpets.
Yeah.
Right? And that was like the thing, and then all of a sudden it wasn't. My advice would be to you guys is keep it as neutral as possible.
Okay.
Right? Don't you've got to live in the home, right? So what's good for you guys, but I would encourage neutral. I'm a recovering developer and builder, built hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of houses, and I always used to caution the buyer, don't over customize your house.
Right.
Because they always would say, well, this is my last house. And I said, well, if I had $1,000 every time somebody told me that, I'd own the island I go to a couple times a year. And it's interesting, if you're in this game long enough, which I'm 3.5 decades, these people we built houses for now are selling them.
Right.
Unfortunately, there's sometimes deaths and life changes that happen at a certain age. And now we're struggling trying to sell a house because it's too custom.
Right.
On that end of it. So I'm scrolling through this because they actually have numbers in here on costs. So they're a complete kitchen renovation is the cost. They're doing the cost recovery is roughly $80,000. This is a national number, right? This is not a local number. So you're going to get 75% of $80,000 back.
Right.
But hold on one second, an upgrade is about half that amount, roughly about $35,000. You're going to get 67% of that back. I would always, particularly if you're going to sell quickly, in the next 12 to 24 months, I would do an upgrade over a renovation, unless you're in a home that was built in the 70s and just the kitchen layout just isn't what it needs to be for today's market. But I would suggest a kitchen upgrade over a replacement.
Now, is there, within that, because there's a lot of things that can happen in the kitchen, right? So I guess, is there a technology upgrade? Is that something that should be given preference over like painting the cabinets? Yeah,
so the rule of thumb is if you're going to do an upgrade, you do everything.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
Right. Each case is different, right? If you went out and bought a new set of appliances 2 years ago, that's kind of updated, right? Right. Then you just want to take care of the cabinets and the tops, and brighten things up a little bit, and maybe add some lighting and stuff like that. But if the appliances are 20 years old, the cabinets are 20 years old, you want to do the whole thing.
Gotcha.
And that's what that $35,000 calculates in.
And now you mentioned there were other things. So there were other things on that list. So one of the things. Oh, that's right. One of the questions I had for you before the show was, does the hardwood floor, which has the biggest return, is that unique for just homes, or would it account for townhomes, condos?
Yeah, so this is everything, right? So if you have a townhome or if you have a condo and you have some oak flooring in it, now just not to geek out on the whole contractor thing. Right. You got to in order to refinish it, you got to make sure you actually have real oak flooring, 3/4 of an inch tongue and groove. Do you know how a quick way to tell if you do and you don't?
No, I don't.
Lift up a air register on the floor, right? You got a return register on an oak floor. You lift it up, you can lift it off, and just look, and you'll see, is it 3/4 of an inch of wood, or is it a laminate that just has an 1/8 of an inch laminate on the top?
Gotcha.
Just, that's a little trick. Just pull the floor register out, and you could just look at it. If it's real wood, then it's real wood, and if it's not, it's not. Then you can sand it.
Right.
If it's not, do not sand it.
Now, would it be worth it to replace it if it's not?
Yeah. So the top return is actually. Excuse me. Let me double check the numbers here real quick because I don't want to misquote it.
Something 147%.
Hold on a second. New wood flooring. So that means you're turning carpet into wood flooring is 118%. So you're recovering more than what it's costing you. I figured that out on my own.
Hey, there you go. But what about something like tile? Does that improve it?
Yeah.
Or is it just not as popular?
Yeah, tile. That's a great question. Yes and no, right? It depends on the kitchen layout. People are really putting a lot of. So the advent, and we're actually in a studio that has it on the floor.
Right.
The advent of this luxury vinyl tile. Right. So it's actually waterproof.
Oh, okay.
Right. So people are putting that in bathrooms now, and that is becoming somewhat the norm. Right. So you can actually put that in. Tile showers are always better than fiberglass. You get a higher return on that end of it. But it's interesting. There's products available now that 1987, when I started 87, 88, started
Right.
building houses, were not available. It was oak floor. Now you have all these different products that are available.
And is there a variation even in the flooring between oak, pine, all these different woods?
Yeah. Now you're getting into like the micro minutia of it.
Well, it's interesting only because like if I had to make a decision between, I have seen like Michael and I go out in the backyard and chop up the trees and do all that because we love to like kind of work outside. And one of the things we love to see is the difference between the different woods. And sometimes you see that on the flooring. So
we have to keep in mind,
yeah,
we're trying to sell the house.
fair. Okay.
Right? So there's two parts to that. If you are building something that you're going to stay in for a long time, or you're renovating something you're going to stay in, this is, I hate to use the term your forever house, but this is where I'm going to be in here for 20 years or something like that, then put what you like in that. If you're remodeling or upgrading for the market, to put it on the market in some 12 to 24 month period, you want to put what the majority of the market wants, and that would be just a typical oak floor or a laminate, which is what luxury vinyl tile, which we're on at the moment. So the more custom is what I was trying to get earlier. The more custom you make it, the more you just narrow your buyer pool down a little bit.
So now, is it worth it though to take a look at, for instance, now the stats that you have? Are they publicly accessible for everyone?
Sure. So I Googled to pull them up this morning.
There you go. So would it be advisable for a young couple that's thinking of renovating to look what's in that year and try to focus on that if they're struggling to prioritize?
So my advice would be seek a trusted advisor.
Okay.
Right. My advice would be is reach out to somebody. I would start with a real estate agent, of course, because what you also don't want to do is if you're in a condominium or a townhome scenario, right? And much like the custom home center, you don't want to make your home that much different than everybody else, right? You want to make it a little personal, right? But you just don't want to, if everything else has, and I'm just going to pick something off the top of my head, everything else has chrome faucets, and then you put gold faucets in there, like way up there, you're just not going to get, it's just you're not going to get the return on the investment. So the first thing I would do is I would get somebody in there to take a look at it and say, okay, these are to do that. Emily Funk at my office, for instance, is a stager, right?
Oh, okay.
And we sometimes, on a listing, I'll have Emily come with me and say, okay, so from your perspective, from your stager, from your interior decorating, she's a certified interior decorator and stager, and say, okay, what do you think we need to do? And generally, to be honest with you, it's decluttering. That's usually the biggie. Right. Yeah. And then a fresh coat of paint. It smells good. And depending on where you are and what you're doing, that might just be it.
So for the cluttering, is that also for when the photographer comes in and takes a picture of everything?
Yeah. You want to depersonalize as much as you can. But you're 100% right. It's the decluttering. Now, in my household, if it sits around for more than 30 days, I throw it away.
Oh, you're the declutterer.
Mrs. Smith is the opposite.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, she keeps. Well, that's why she keeps me.
You haven't thrown yourself out at 30 days.
Yeah, she hasn't thrown me out, but I'm really confused. She's in Europe right now, and she only got a one-way ticket, so I'm very confused right now.
We were confused when she called us up and said goodbye. It was
really? No, when she called you up and said, hey, all that money you guys got, can you shift it over to this account?
Yeah, does Keith need to know if I
Did she do that? Look at he's laughing. Did she? Oh. Should I be worried?
No, no, you don't have to worry at all.
I was getting a little.
I was like, it's gonna come knocking on my door. I have another bedroom.
If she hears this, she's gonna kick my butt everywhere from here to next week.
Well, she's not checking today, right? Because today's a Thursday, and you're not usually on Thursday.
No, she knows. She called me. She WhatsApped me this morning. I told her I was going to be on with you.
So there you go. So she's, we love you. We're just making jokes.
It is 4:30 in the afternoon.
Oh, nice.
It's Austria, so it's 6 hours ahead.
So I think it's like that. This is Cafe Society time for a little espresso and a little treat.
Could be.
Yeah.
All I know it's a one-way ticket. That's all I know. Yeah, so, I think that was one of the topics I wanted to talk about today, which was, what should I do? What makes sense on it? It's interesting. And this is a very timely conversation, so thank you for bringing it up.
Right.
If we were having this conversation October of last year, the conversation probably would have been different.
Interesting.
Well, the market was different.
Right. In what way, though, was it different?
It was insane.
Well, not the market. I meant, in what way was it different? A different conversation, like what?
Because you would not have had to do things to a home.
Ah, gotcha.
Right. So you would not have had to upgrade. You would not have. Right now, this is something that you should be. If you're going to sell your home, you want to make sure it's right.
Right.
Right. Because the pendulum is shifting a little bit. Right. It's shifting from sellers to buyers. We're not quite there yet, but it is shifting. So this conversation about let's call it dressing your home up or getting your home ready for the market is what we call it.
See, as an investor, it's like adding value to the home would be what
100% right. So from an investment perspective, like this is the reason we're talking ROIs, it's the same thing.
Right.
But more than likely, investors are not buying. I mean, there's investors out there buying, but it's the normal buyer that's out there that's buying the home.
Right, okay.
So this conversation last year would have been very different.
Interesting. Now, are there projects so I gave you a 2 to 3 year window for, like, just because personally that's kind of our ballpark, and I've seen a lot of couples come in where it's the same window. They're looking 2 to 3 or 1 to 3 years, upgrading, moving out, doing something different. Is there anything that you would say, just looking from your perspective as a realtor, where you're like, that's 100% not worth doing if it's either too expensive or as we mentioned before, the diminishing return on it is just going to be so great that 2 to 3 years from now it's just obsolete.
So again, we'll stay on the hardwood refinishing, right? That's the highest return, 147%.
Right.
But in 2 or 3 years, depending on dogs, high heels, whatever, you might have to redo it again.
Okay.
Right. Now, keep in mind, it's about $2 to $3 a square foot to refinish a floor. A true traditional.
If you hire someone or if you do it yourself.
Oh, you do not want to do it yourself.
Okay.
No. There's big machines. You got that's a skill and talent and science into itself. Yeah, you don't want to go out and rent a drum sander and go oops and stand in a spot too long and the oak floor goes from 3/4 of an inch down to a 1/2 inch, right? You do not want to.
No, okay.
I mean, unless you've done it before and you know what you're doing, that's one thing. It's not like installing luxury vinyl tile. That's you can do yourself.
Right.
But refinishing oak 3/4 inch oak floor is a science unto itself.
Right.
So to your question, you can refinish it, but if you're going to put it on the market 2 to 3 years, you may be, depending on how well you keep it, you may have to do that. The other thing is, if you're going to refinish it and put it on the market, when somebody buys a home, they use all their 5 senses. And that smell of a fresh paint, that smell of the floor, it's like a new car, right?
Right, yeah.
Kind of thing. It impacts the buyer very, very much so.
And that includes the stain on the refinished floor, or?
Yeah, well, it's the polyurethane is what you usually are smelling.
Right.
To your question, each individual home is different, but I would lean towards a kitchen makeover, for lack of a better term, instead of a remodel, if that's what you really wanted to focus on. Repaint it, put new countertops on it, upgrade appliances, depending on the kitchen, right? Depending on the actual home.
Right.
But my advice would be that I think if you do a total renovation, unless it absolutely needs it, in 2 to 3 years, you're probably not going to recover the money out of it. Does that make sense?
No, it does. I'm just wondering, is that also because you and I are Italian, like the kitchen is the heart of the home for us, or is that just a universal thing you feel like?
It's not even Italian, right?
No, it's
right?
not.
Everybody hangs out at the kitchen. That's
Fair.
the universal location,
right?
No matter where you have in the house, unless the football game is on, everybody's hanging out at the kitchen, right? On that end of it. So that's why generally people try to spruce that up. It's the most commonly used space within a home.
What about the bathrooms? Would that be next, or would you go for the master bedroom?
So what we need to be super careful about is what we don't want to do is over renovate or over upgrade a home and all of a sudden blow yourself out of the market. Right? So that's the reason the trusted advisor is so important. It's okay, let's understand where the market is today and maybe where the market's going to go in 12 to 24 months. Nobody really knows, right? We've got crystal balls here. We can kind of figure that out. But, we can get a decent. We know this much. We know we're not going to be doing what happened between 20 and 22 as far as increase goes. It's probably going to be more normal in the 3 to 5% range or less, more or less, depending on location. So what you don't want to do is do all this money now, and I'm going to sell it 2 years from now. All of a sudden, overprice yourself because you spent all this money today, and 2 years from now, go, oops, back to this over customizing a custom home, right? And then you have to sell it. It becomes difficult to find the buyer for that.
Okay.
Am I being helpful?
No. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I think that's interesting. So it's sort of like you don't want your home necessarily, you don't want to do so much to it that you're actually not going to start seeing the returns because too much has been done. You've spent so much money and it's not going to start showing up.
So if your house your townhome to the left, I'm picking numbers, let's call it a market value of $100,000. Okay. Right? And we're all agreeing I'm projecting over the next several years a probably 3 to 5% year-over-year increase, right?
Fair.
You own the unit next to it that's valued at $100,000, and I put $50,000 worth of work into it. You're a smart guy. You're a math guy. How many years is it going to take before you get to break even?
Yeah.
Right.
It's going to take a while.
So that's what you have to be careful about.
So it doesn't automatically increase the value of the home $50,000. It also it's going to still depend on a lot of other factors that are.
Well, on Monday, on Real Talk with Keith Smith, this is a great question to ask Woody Fincham. So you have to, unless you're buying in cash, right, more than likely you're financing it, it has to appraise. So how does that work?
Okay, gotcha,
right?
Gotcha, right, yeah.
So they're going to look at what's sold in that subdivision, street, area, and that's the point I'm making. So you have to very strategically do what you're going to do to the home, understanding the market.
That's why you have to contact the trusted advisor, the professional.
Call Yona. She's in Austria.
Yeah, call Yona in Austria. Well, you mentioned that you have Emily Funk also who comes in and helps with
We're very fortunate. We've got wonderful people on our team.
And so, like, another, just one last question, I think, while we're on this sort of seller mindset, is that you did mention, like, the decluttering before, you take the pictures and you put it up for sale. I had heard that it's also better to keep your furniture still there so that people envision the space rather than just emptying it out.
I personally would agree with that. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and but my office in my house, I'm a minimalist. I don't have a lot there. Mrs. Smith, again, who keeps things, has lots of stuff in her office. I wouldn't say it's cluttered, but there's stuff there.
There's stuff. Okay.
My office is very minimalistic. It's a desk, and that's it. A couple pictures of the grandkids, and whatever I have on my laptop, on my iPhone, is what I need.
Right.
Yona, God love her, keeps every piece of paper from 30-something years, and knows where they all are, by the way.
Oh, wow. Okay. So, because I was going to say I'm cluttery, but I don't know where they all are. No. So my wife's more like you. It has to be thrown out right away.
30 days. If it hasn't been touched in 30, except for my boat, that's a different story.
Oh, I knew you had a boat.
Oh, yeah. That's a different story. That doesn't get thrown away if I haven't touched it in 30 days.
What's the return on that?
Huh?
What's the return on the boat? The fun times, right?
I haven't been in it in 2 years, so let's put it that way.
Oh, that's terrible. You got to get out there.
It looks good in the driviveway.
Oh, does it actually improve the driveway when somebody's taking a picture of the boat in the front?
No. I'm just trying to rationalize. I'm just trying to rationalize not selling it.
There you go.
So they have a joy factor, which they did something different this year.
Okay, right. Tell me about that.
Which is interesting, that you might find interesting. So 2021 versus 2022, what they have done is they asked a different set of questions. Maybe we're talking two things, right? We're talking what can I do to my house for the best ROI to sell it. This second set of questions were about, okay, I'm going to stay in the house for 3 years or some certain period of time. What should I do to it that will bring, they're calling it joy, right?
Right.
And it's pretty logical. They do a 1 to 10 ratio. Painting the interior of the home is the top one at 10 on that end of it. And, it's hardwood refinishing, new floor, closet renovation, insulation upgrade, attic conversion, starts dropping below 10. Believe it or not, the lowest number of 8 is adding a new bathroom.
Adding a new bathroom
Is the lowest number.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, so
Which I always, because
I can't figure that one out, but that's
I would have always assumed that adding a new bathroom gives. I mean, especially if you have a family, that there's always this conflict for the bathroom that would actually provide a lot of ease, but I guess not. Is there a highest number?
If you were to ask me what my favorite room in my house is, if you were to ask me that question, maybe you should ask me that question.
What is your favorite room in your
half
house?
Bath.
The half bath?
I love my half bath. It's my throne.
You just lock yourself in and.
Well, nobody comes in, but
Yeah.
I don't have to lock myself in. But
It's like you just need a little.
it's my little
time
space. That's my me space where I can do a little reading and stuff. Not to get too far down a unpleasant subject. But
No. I was just curious if that's that's because of the bathtub in there and you got a luxury jacuzzi and.
So tell me the genesis of these questions, right? You have a piece of property that you're considering possibly selling, and the genesis of this conversation is what can I do to the home to increase my ability to sell?
Right.
And my highest return. Is that kind of what we're thinking?
Well, it was interesting because basically the genesis was that my wife came to me and said, I was thinking, what do you think of this wallpaper? And on a website, I said, it's nice. Why do you want wallpaper? And she said, to do the bathroom. And I told you the story before. I said, why? So we had this discussion about doing little things to the house. And I asked her, trying to reduce everything to logic, I said, okay, what's the first project? Because the winter's coming up, and if you and I get stir crazy in the house, we should find something to do. What's the number one? And she goes, I don't know, I need to think about it. So it started my process thinking of, what's going to bring us the highest return on the house?
So that wallpaper is nowhere on any of these lists.
Okay, so wallpapering the bathroom does not help.
I would never wallpaper a bathroom.
Okay. So I know my wife might be listening.
Yeah.
We're not going to wallpaper the bathroom.
But that goes... Again, if you are trying to put it on the market 12 to 24 months from now, wallpaper is very specific, right?
Right.
I like one color, pattern, you like another, so you're very specific. I would encourage you to kind of neutral it, right? Neutral colors, neutral paints, upgrade light fixtures, maybe, again, without physically seeing the bathroom on it. How old's the house?
I don't remember. She's owned it for 5 years. It was almost new at the time, I believe.
So it's less than 10 years old.
Yes.
Got it. So
I believe.
Yeah. So more than likely, it's kind of captured some of the modern.
All the walls are white.
Yeah. Well, that's builder white. That's what happens, right?
That's what it is, right?
Yeah, but painting, I would encourage you to paint in lieu of wallpaper.
Okay, so give it a fresh,
absolutely.
A new color, or would you just go with builder white?
Oh no, I would not do builder white. I would bring somebody like Emily Funk in or whatever to say, okay, what's the matching color here? To go ahead and do it. What's the in vogue color? What do you think it's going to be in the next 12 to 24 months? The point I'm making is, wallpaper the I Love Charlottesville VMV brands behind you. That's my favorite wallpaper in the world. If I do my bathroom with that, it's only Keith that loves, there's thousands and tens of thousands and hundreds of thousands of people that love that. But my point I'm trying to make is it's very specific.
Right. No, that's fair. Yeah.
So I would not wallpaper. And generally, of my 30 some odd years of doing this, if you run into a wallpaper with a buyer, the first thing they say is, I'm taking that off the wall.
Right.
I've never had anybody say, "Oh, I love this. I can't wait to move in this house because of the wallpaper."
Does it pull from the price at all, or?
It's just look, the market is shifting, right?
Right.
Right. So, what we need to start thinking more like is a buyer's market, which means the seller is not so much in control, right? That shift is starting to happen. So, again, the point I was saying last year, it didn't matter if there was wallpaper on that bathroom. Okay, I'll take the house because I won, I got it, right? And I'll just deal with it later. Now, it makes a difference, the little differences, and you really want to be as neutral as possible,
right?
If that makes sense.
No, it does, because it would seem that would be at least have either not a wider appeal, but at least an appeal in the sense that more people will be, I guess, amenable to it. They can envision changing it rather than something that's outrageous.
And the other thing about the wallpaper thing on it, or it doesn't really matter, but we'll stay on wallpaper for the moment. Finding people now, I'm going to buy the house. Finding people now to go ahead and go in and do it is hard. Right. So I've just wrote a couple of contracts this weekend, first-time home buyers, right? And they were taking homes off the list that needs a little things that have to be done, right? Like take wallpaper off. They took it off the list right away. I don't have the time to deal with that. I'm paying more for the house because my interest rates is higher than it was this time last year. I need things that are more ready, turnkey, for lack of a better term.
Right.
So be as neutral as possible right now.
Okay, gotcha. Now, the only before we get too late, because I know you got a hard stop at 11:15.
Yeah.
I wanted to also think about on the buyer end. You're a young couple looking to buy a new house, and no matter where you go, there's always something, right? There's always something that needs to be done.
Sure.
How do you value what should be you should be willing to take on and stuff that you shouldn't?
So that's very personal, right? It's what you're comfortable with, what you're not comfortable with. If you're handy and there's certain things like painting a room or something like that you guys can handle easily, that's a different path. But if the house needs a new HVAC system, so are we talking more cosmetic or more structural or anything?
Well, we can pick each one of those topics and then go with them. So we'll start with the structural ones. Let's say that, one thing that popped into my mind is that I remember my brother-in-law recently bought a house, and his advisor told him, don't buy a smaller house and then look to add on, buy the square footage and then renovate it if you need to. Is that?
Yeah, I do not disagree with that.
Okay.
One does not know what the future holds, right?
Fair.
On that end of it. But if you intend to buy a home and have a family in it, and you're blessed with that, then and if you can afford it now, then that's the question. If you can afford it now, then buy the square footage that works for you right now. But if you can't, then that's a different discussion. So let's assume you can.
Okay.
Right? Then he's spot on. You can go ahead and do that. The point I was making. This time last year, it didn't matter if the HVAC system was 20 years old. People just bought them.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm paying 2% mortgage. I'll just get more money and do it. Now it matters, right? So if your home, if the mechanicals, if the basic operating of a home, I'm flipping between buy and sell here at the moment. So on sell, maybe painting the bathroom isn't the right place to spend the money. Maybe my 20-year-old HVAC system should be replaced.
Right.
And by the way, they typically have a 10-year lifespan.
Oh, okay,
on them.
Gotcha.
They can go longer, but typically on average, an HVAC system, heating and cooling system, is about 10 years. So if I'm representing you as a buyer, right? And we're looking at a condo or a townhome or a single-family detached home, you'll be looking at the colors and stuff. I'll be outside looking at the date stamps on the units, on the hot water heater. I'll look at the roof. Is the roof at the point that has to be replaced? My builder brain starts turning on that end of it. So there's two sides to the equation. So those are things that you have to do, right?
Right.
You don't have to put wallpaper in your bathroom.
Fair. Yeah. I see what you're saying.
Right, but if your HVAC system is old, that's a conversation you probably ought to be having.
Are there other things other than the HVAC that we need to talk about, like stoves, washing machines?
Appliances, things that are removable, easily removable, like appliances, like refrigerator and all that stuff. Those are interchangeable pretty easy, right?
Right.
Well, assuming you can get them, right?
I was like, it's on the second story, so.
No, I'm talking about actually buy them.
Oh,
right?
to buy them, yeah. No, you can just
without supply chain thing.
Yeah, whatever.
But these are operating systems: hot water heater,
right?
HVAC system, your furnace, those kind of things, roofing, right? Are the windows modern, right?
Oh, the windows too. Oh, interesting.
Yeah, sure. So if you're buying something that was built in the 70s, more than likely it does not have modern insulated windows, right?
Right. Okay, fair.
So if you look at a home that you're buying on 70, and these are things I'll be looking at, right? Okay, look, they just replaced the windows. The HVAC system is replaced, or a couple years old. The roof was replaced a couple years. It's easy to tell with just a quick eyeball inspection. So these are all great boxes to check.
Right.
Then we're focusing on, okay, does the color of the wall right? I can assure you, Nick, people do not turn a house on or off because they got to paint a wall, right?
Okay, fair.
Right?
Yeah.
Generally, if it checks all the other boxes, then painting is something that's easily managed. If it's, oh my God, I'm spending $100,000 and I got to put $40,000 worth of upgrade, just things that they should have done over the years, then that's a whole different conversation.
Okay. What about that kind of middle ground of sort of like inefficient design that's the fridge is right next to the bathroom and so you can't open one door without hitting the other, something weird like that? Would that also go into the category of something that you need to get done before you sell in a kind of in a market that we're sort of
so the market we're about ready to go into, boxes like that should be checked. We should try to minimize the objections,
right,
as much as you can,
right.
There's only so much you can do, right? Because you don't want to, again, overvalue the house,
right.
Does that make sense?
No, it makes sense. It's sort of like you don't want to necessarily put too much into changing things that are menial when you're not going to see that return.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Now, we were starting with the structural. Now let's move to the cosmetic. When you're looking for a home, are there things where you can take a look and say, I can easily work with that, or something that's even cosmetically, you're like, you're advising someone, if you're going to change this much, this is not the house for you.
Yeah, and again, it's very specific, right?
Okay.
To the buyer, right? So the real estate market is, I've added a 6, but it's 6 things, right? It's location, price, features, which is what we're talking about.
Features, okay.
Condition, right? Because that's the other condition is my HVAC system shot. Timing is super important. And then the last one, which gets me in a little bit of trouble, who's on the other side matters, right?
Right.
Who you're working with on the other side matters. But the focus on features and condition, if the location is right, the price is right, and you're comfortable with trying to work through the features and conditions. Our daughter is coming to live in Richmond, right? She's moving from Seattle. We're literally having the same discussion. We're helping them find a house or property to buy in Richmond. And we're literally having this conversation going, okay, so let's find our where first.
Yeah.
Let's find our where at a price point that you're comfortable with. This neighborhood is typically this price point.
Okay.
Right?
Right.
Okay, and then we start taking a dive into the features and the conditions. And depending to her and them, their importance is they want to walk out of their house and walk for a cup of coffee.
Okay, interesting. Right.
And they're willing to pay for that, and they're willing to go ahead and buy something that may not have all the features that they want and may not be in the perfect condition. So to them, that is their important item. Oh, by the way, that probably will change a couple of months from now, right? Once we have another granddaughter or grandson at that point, that may totally change. But at the moment, that is their number one driving factor.
So they're looking for something like closer to...
They want to walk to everything.
They want to be able to walk to everything. Okay, interesting. Now, is there... So I guess, sorry, I have a question that it was more Charlottesville based. Are you seeing pockets... I mean, I know you talk about this all on your show, but just for our audience, pockets of areas where you feel like there's kind of a big explosion? Because I know that my wife tends to keep a look on things, just to like monitor, have fun. We kind of talk about what we like. Yeah. And we notice that there are some areas that are much cheaper than others and some that are much more well-kept houses than in other places. Sure. Do you see that ever... I want to say regulating, but sort of like balancing out in the future, or is just or are the places that are already expensive going to continue to aggravate, and those other places not so much?
Yeah. So the like I said earlier, the where matters, right?
Okay.
Right. And is a term that Jerry Miller and I have been tossing around. The market is becoming hyper local, right? So one side of the street or one block over could be different than the others. Actually, the advice I gave my daughter, which I would give anybody, we've narrowed it down to a couple of neighborhoods, and she's coming for Thanksgiving. And I said, you know what? Just take a walk around the neighborhood, see how it feels.
Yeah.
To answer your question a little bit more directly, again, this time last year, the rubber band was huge, right? It was stretched out. It didn't matter where you were. Prices were accelerating at, in some cases, double digits, right? That rubber band is restricted a little bit. It's probably closer to Charlottesville, closer to what they call the urban ring, closer to parts of Fluvanna, Nelson, and Greene, and poking itself up to Augusta and Waynesboro and Stanton kind of look like a pear. Instead of a big circle, it's kind of looking like a pear. But you can visualize a pear with the stem being the north on the pear. In general, if you're within that pear, I think you'll do fine. If you're outside of that pear, maybe not so much. Right. And inside that pear, inside that area, again, Northtown, downtown is going to be different than 10th and Page, right? There's Belmont's going to be different than Cherry Avenue, right? So each area is going to start changing a little bit, and you need a trusted advisor to help you navigate that.
Now, I know we talked a lot like interiors. On the exterior side, what are the...
Great.
Because it just occurred to me that I think we skipped entirely over exteriors. What are things that either are going to bring return or things that should be looked at that need to be fixed? Obviously, we mentioned the garage door right away as a last year's number one thing, but I'm just curious, like...
Yeah, great.
Where do we go with that? Is it the driveway? Is it the functioning mailbox? Is it...
No, I'm there now. That's page 42 of the report. Cost recovery on exterior projects. Number one is roofing. Number two now is garage doors.
Okay, gotcha.
Right, cement fiber siding. So that brand name is called Hardy Plank. That is 86%. Vinyl siding is 82%. Vinyl windows. This is the window upgrade we were talking about earlier. Right. 67%. Wood windows 63%. Which is an interesting point. Vinyl windows are substantially cheaper than wood windows.
Right.
But you're only really picking up a couple of percentage points in ROI. New front door is about 63% on that end of it. So it's things that are going to help the digital curb appeal, right? Most buyers use this iPhone I'm holding in my hand.
Right.
97% of them. I've got a whole report here, which we didn't get to, about millennials and how often they use this phone, but they'll use this to narrow it down. So it's got to look good from the street, and that's why these exterior these are things that boost the curb appeal.
Now, does that include landscaping too? Was that?
It's funny, it's not on the list. Landscaping is not on the list.
I'm surprised. I thought that there would be at least, because that does help, right? When you have a look. Cause
I don't disagree with that.
I sometimes Elizabeth sends me a house, and I'm like, well, first thing we got to do is get rid of that tree or something,
Well, these are the top 10, so it did
Right.
not make the top 10.
Interesting. Okay,
Yeah,
so that's.
but I don't disagree with you, though. I mean, it's back to the curb appeal, right? You according to the stats from the National Association of Realtors and my personal experience, most buyers make their decision within 5 seconds, 7 seconds. It's that fast.
Oh, interesting.
All 5 senses come in, and it's either you can just tell by the body language that this is working and this isn't working.
So is it 5 seconds since when they enter the house, or since
When they
finish?
start walking up, technically it's from when they put the key in the door, but it really starts when they get out of the car and start walking up towards the house. It makes a difference.
So then, would it be an interesting, I guess, experiment to be, or question to be like, if you do a little bit of fresh landscaping?
I agree. It's not on the list, but I would highly recommend it.
Do you think it's something that they overlooked, or something that hasn't, or because it's not structural, or is it something that's just?
It's the report's 75 pages, so I'm only on page 42.
Okay, there you go. So there's a lot more report
at the point, but I'm just looking at the top 10.
Right.
Kind of doing oh God, who used to do the top 10 of the late night show?
Oh, I don't know. I don't watch late night.
Yeah. I can't remember which host used to do that, but that's just the top 10.
I remember Chris Bergman would do the top 10 for the football highlights, but there was that.
So Joy scores is interesting. It pretty much matches it. Exterior siding, vinyl and wood windows, steel front door, steel or fiberglass front doors, 2 separate categories. Roofing, garage door drops down to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, number 6.
So it's got the highest return, but it's the thing that brings you the least joy.
Well,
or
think about it.
second
It's your
highest.
garage door.
Yeah.
Does your garage door bring you joy? It doesn't bring me joy. When it works, it's joyful.
I was going to say, it brings me joy when I open it up.
Yeah,
and it
when
works.
the little button I press and it goes up.
Yeah,
it's
that's
good.
fun.
What doesn't bring me joy is the little pad on the side. When that thing goes on the fritz all the time. I don't know why.
Yeah, I know. I don't use the pad. I can't remember the code. So that's something my wife has to do. I always just go around through the front door. And
So they're saying a garage door costs $2,000, which is about right.
Okay.
And it's 100% return on it, versus a new roof runs anywhere between, they're just using an average of $12,000. It depends on the size of the roof.
But I would imagine, are there HOA considerations that you also have to take into account for a new roof?
That's a whole set of questions.
Because like in a townhome, I couldn't necessarily say replace the whole thing with Mediterranean tile when everyone else has the same kind of roof.
That is, you break out your HOA docs and start reading what you can or can't do.
Right.
9 times out of 10, you can't change exterior colors. But again, if that townhome's 5 years old, the roof is fine. It's probably a 30-year roof anyway.
Okay.
So I wouldn't worry about that.
Okay.
It's probably vinyl siding, which I wouldn't worry about that, or hardy plank, either one of the two. The front door is only 5 years old. So if you're in something that's only 5 years old, there's really not that much you should have to do to the home, other than
The HVAC.
well, no, it's only 5 years old.
Oh, I'm sorry. You were talking 10 before. That's right. Sorry. If it's 5 years old.
Yeah. I was going to use the word just put some lipstick on it, but maybe that's inappropriate. But put a little bit of lipstick on it. Right.
Dress it up.
Declutter it. Dress it up. I would encourage you not to do wallpaper if this is this is the unit we're talking about.
Right.
I'd figure out what the color du jour is for the wall. That's what I would do. Maybe if you've got chrome fixtures, you change it to brushed nickel. Some little small things like that would be helpful on the end of it. But I would just declutter, depersonalize, paint it up. If you have some carpeted areas you want to change to some sort of hardwood floor, I would use the luxury vinyl tile, which we have which is in the studio here.
Rather than hardwood?
Yeah, it's cheaper to put down, easier to put down. It's well received. installing true hardwood flooring
Yeah.
where you sand and do it in place. It's very difficult, very expensive, and a messy project.
Yeah. Now, is it superior, this kind of vinyl, even
Yeah,
to
I think
carpet?
the dollar. Excuse me.
Even preferable even to carpet, I say.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
I would. Yeah,
And it doesn't matter what the room is?
Yeah, a lot of people are doing that in the whole house nowadays.
Okay.
These luxury vinyl tiles. It's becoming and it's practical. It's waterproof, and you can't damage it. The dogs can't damage it. The high heels I wear doesn't bother it on that end of it. Oh, sorry, did I say that out loud?
Yeah.
The high heels don't bother it. So that would be my advice to you.
Yeah, okay.
Not the high heels.
Not the high heels, don't worry about that. My wife does all the high heel walking in our home.
I was just trying to have a little fun with you.
Just to emphasize the height difference, since she is
Oh.
already an inch taller than me. She wears the high heels when she wants me to look even
So
shorter.
tell me how you feel about that.
I like it, actually.
There you go.
She looks
Good
good.
for you.
That's really my only concern is, but getting back to sort of like the little, I lost my train of thought. The little things you do with a townhome, and we talked about replacing the vinyl.
Yeah, so the thing that the takeaway that you have to have here
Right.
is don't over personalize it, and don't do more to the home than you could possibly get out of it in the future in the market, right? And that's why you need somebody to come in and say, okay, particularly in a townhome situation, because everybody's
Right.
close to one another. It's the same thing on a block, right? You don't want to, you never want to be the most expensive home, in my opinion, on a block for resale purposes.
Right.
Now, if you want to be there and live there for 50 years or 20 years or whatever, that's a whole different animal. But if it's something that you're going to go ahead and sell in a couple of years, just don't overdo it.
Right. Now, one last question. I saw a design, we were watching a show, and there's that, I don't know what you call it, that accent at the top of the ceiling, the crowning. And when they painted the house, they painted over it. Is that so if we do a repainting and there's the crowning and there's the thing,
Base molding.
the base molding, do you paint over both of those?
Oh,
or?
yeah. When you paint, you paint.
Okay. So you don't leave them white for a little contrast or.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
You see what I'm driving at now? Yeah, where you sort of like you've got like a white crowning already.
So I would paint. The color du jour is this kind of light cloud gray. Seems to be the color.
Right.
Then you would do the crown white, and then you do the baseboard white. You do contrast. I would suggest contrast.
Okay,
colors. You want if you've got crown. You want it to pop. You want
Right.
people to see that you have crown molding.
That's what I had assumed.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think we have crown. I can't remember. I haven't looked up in a while.
Yeah. And the question would be, should I put up crown? If you don't have it, don't put it up.
Oh, if you don't have it, don't put it up.
And at that townhome scenario, I probably wouldn't do it.
But in a home, you would.
If you were building a home, yeah. But I personally love crown molding.
What if you already had a home and you're looking, further out?
So the problem, the struggle with crown.
This has to be our last question. Sorry, because I know we're gonna run out of time.
Yeah. I just got a hard stop. That's all. I could do this for another hour. The crown is a very specific conversation, right? Because you've got to figure out where to start it, where to stop it. Is
Right.
the room exactly square? It's a pretty different conversation to have. The question is, if you've got crown molding and you're repainting, paint everything. Contrasting colors are good,
Right.
Unless it doesn't work in the room. It's good unless it's not.
Yeah.
That was profound, wasn't it?
But that's how things are, right? That's just the nature of things.
Stuff.
Right. So I know you have a hard stop. I appreciate
do.
you coming on, though. I really.
Yeah,
It was
this
a
was
great
fun.
conversation.
This was fun, yeah.
I love having you on.
Yeah,
You're always great.
you're
fun.
family, man. So anytime.
And the information you provided was extremely valuable. I know we got to stop right now, so thank you.
I got a couple minutes leeway,
Wow.
but
That's okay. But I need to wrap it up. Let's not forget to thank our sponsors too. So
Sure.
it's Emergent Financial Services, GBS Financial Services, our good friend Johan Torres, Miguel Corradine, and the Curatic Serious Insurance, Castle Hill Cider, Aqua Seville Hand Car Wash, the Jim Seville, and Ford Adelante Business Alliance. And
Well
thank you,
done,
the
sir.
audience, for, I forgot to write them down this time, but I knew them.
Bravo.
Thank you to our audience for watching, and thank you for Judah behind the cam making us both look good. Actually, Keith does not need any assistance in that.
Oh, you're so
It's
sweet.
only me and Xavier that needed that, and Alex mostly.
And we got a couple of chuckles out of. We refer to him as God now.
Yeah. Oh,
We
yeah.
got a couple.
The voice of God.
We got a couple of chuckles out of our director. So.
Yeah. And thank you, Jerry, for having us on the I Love Seville Network. And thank you, our audience. And until then, would you like to say the closing words for today, man? Do you remember?
No, this is your show. I just love being here. I love talking real estate, and thank you for the invite. Anytime, I'll be more than happy to come up. Come on.
We'll have you on again. And
Thank
until then, hasta mañana. I didn't even say that properly because I was